球、人間、文化、さまざまなもの、こと、良いアイデアが浮かばない。スランプだ。
How do you get out of a creative slump? As a recent college graduate, I've had my fair share of slumps in the past decade. It's bound to happen. Humans are just kinda like that. But on those long nights when you feel like lo-fi girl and a blank canvas stares at you, it can be really easy to lose yourself in your creative pursuits. One episode from a colorful TV show helped me learn something. I Want to Be As I Am may seem like a normal Super Sentai episode at first, but it actually recontextualizes a decades-old trope and sparks an interesting comparison between creativity for creativity's sake and creativity for work. I know that not as many people have watched Kiramager, but I'll do my best to fill in the gaps for you. I want to make sure that this episode's message reaches as many people as possible. Disclaimer, I was very passionate about this episode, but then in editing I realized how interesting Super Sentai can be to the layman. You'll have to suspend your disbelief for a bit and try to appreciate all the wonderful oddities that Super Sentai brings, including, but not limited to, the costumes, the special effects, and the pen pineapple apple pen guy. I'll get to him in a bit. But if you stick with me, I promise that there's a beautiful message here. Super Sentai, or as you probably know them in the English localization as Power Rangers, is a tokusatsu action show that dates back to the 70s. It follows a Monster of the Week formula as a team of colorful heroes fight both hand-to-hand and in giant mechs. Kiramager is the 44th season of Super Sentai, and we follow the Kiramagers. They all have this thing called Kira mentality. This is a shining energy they have when they exemplify their specific talents. This shine allows them to sync with the power of the Crystalia Kingdom, allowing them to fight the evil empire Yudonheim. Each of them brings something specific to the table. Yellow is a pro gamer, green is a runner, blue is an actor, pink is a doctor, silver is an adventurer. Most importantly, we have red, Juru Atsuta. He originally wasn't a part of the Kiramagers at first, but his shine was so powerful it allowed him to create and make new tools to help fight. His shine is his imagination, which he manifests through art. The main takeaway here is that Red has been fighting the entire series by being his best self, drawing his heart out, being unapologetically artistic, and being best boy. Other characters I feel I should mention are the Princess of Crystalia, Mabushina, their mentor, Murio, who is played by Daimao Kosaka, aka the pen pineapple apple pen guy, Yodonna, one of the Dark Generals, Garza, another Dark General, and finally the one we'll be focusing on, Crunchula, the Dark General who is in charge of creating the Monster of the Week every week to help invade Earth. He specializes in making monsters based on Earth concepts, such as golf, faucets. He gets creative with his monsters is what I'm saying, and he is the one in charge of the brunt of the invasion of Earth. His monsters every week have some sort of gimmick that's inspired by something he's found on Earth. Superglue masks to superglue things together, digital camera masks to take pictures of things and capture them, you get the gist. He uses the ensuing chaos that his monsters bring in order to summon even bigger monsters and eventually take over the world. That should be enough to jump into the episode summary. We open on Crunchula being frustrated because he's in a major creative slump. Yodonna chimes in and says that Crunchula prioritizes creativity over power, which is why he keeps failing. He retorts that his monsters need to fit to his standards. He doubles down and declares that his next monster is going to be the strongest he's ever made. Meanwhile, at the Kiramager base, Juru is drawing. Mabushina asks why, and he says he's just having fun. The other Kiramagers comment on how doing things they love with no obligations can help with their flow. The monster attacks, and they arrive on the scene. Civilians are hurt, and we see that one person on the ground is... a cat? So now we need to talk about the elephant in the room. Or should I say the cat? Yep, this Monster of the Week's gimmick is that he turns people into cats. The Kiramagers stare in disbelief, then ask if Crunchula is in a slump, which he takes offense to. They start fighting. Lucky Cat Marsk hits red, green, and pink with his bell, and the three turn into cats. Silver, blue, and yellow try to corral them with mixed results. The monster, satisfied, decides to take a break, to which Crunchula ostracizes him for being too free-spirited. Juru, fascinated by Crunchula's bracelets, follows him while the rest retreat. Confronted, Crunchula tries to send Juru away. In the pursuing catastrophe, Juru drops his signature sketchbook. Crunchula examines it and realizes that his enemy is a creative just like him. They've both been using their creativity for a cause. The two approach an unfinished sign in the middle of being painted. Juru, retaining his artistic personality, begins to paint. Crunchula notices that he's simply thinking about having fun. Crunchula realizes that his appreciation for Earth culture has been him having fun as well, and that his time on Earth has been a big source of inspiration for him as well. He laments the pressure that being a part of the Dark Empire puts him through. He decides to join Juru in painting. They have a wonderful time creating art together. Meanwhile, Yodonna powers up Lucky Cat Marsk. Everyone who was turned into cats become feral and attack. Crunchula and Juru finish their painting, and he says that it was the first bit of fun he's had in a long time. Juru, now feral, starts to attack the painting. Crunchula attempts to defend it, but Yodonna arrives. She says that having fun is useless and that only things that benefit the Emperor matter. Yodonna believes that Crunchula has run out of usefulness, creating defunct monsters and playing games with the enemy. She belittles and destroys the painting he's made. Frustrated, Crunchula attacks her. Yodonna prepares to strike back, but Judu catches the strike just in time. Crunchula releases the spell on Judu and tells him to run. Crunchula has essentially committed treason and betrayed the Dark Empire he's been working for the entire series. He says that there's something more important than loyalty to the Empire and the invasion that he cares about. He has pride in himself as a Marsk master, as a creative. Yodonna thinks he's talking more nonsense, but Crunchula has become more dedicated and refined as a creator. He flees. The Kiramagers launch into their usual fight sequence. As Yodonna corners Crunchula, he pleads with his fellow general. The Emperor reveals himself and attacks. Crunchula falls into the water, meeting his end. The Kiramagers finish the fight, and Judu returns to the destroyed painting. He remembers some of what happened when he was under. Judu remarks, "Well, it was so free-spirited. We just painted to enjoy it, making art, and I had a really fun time with Crunchula. I just wish everyone could do the same." Surprisingly, Crunchula is our protagonist in this episode. Up until this point, he's been the main antagonistic force of the series. He's been set up as the usual monster maker character, but in this episode, we get to see an interesting side to him. He begins the episode in a slump. He has no idea what monster to make and is getting criticized for the countless failures he's done up until now. This is episode 41, so there's been a lot of monsters he's been in charge of. It's important to note that both the characters in universe and the viewers watching are feeling the same thing. This guy is just throwing random stuff at us now. Is he going to do something interesting anytime soon? Even the Kiramagers remark that he's in a slump. But no, Crunchula still stands by it. He still respects his creation. This is a major aspect of his character that shines in this episode, his pride. When confronted by Red, he's still in a mindset of me versus you. It's only when he finds his sketchbook does he find a common link between him and his enemy. This one action sends him on a long road to redemption. He finds common ground with his enemy, and because of his own creature, he's finally seeing eye to eye with Kirame Red. Together they engage in painting, and he even remarks that this is the first time he's had fun in a long time. What does this statement say? He's been doing his job, but at one point, his job stopped being about being his creative self, and more about the actual invasion. This one realization flips his character on his head. Should I really be fighting for Jotunheim after they've sapped the one thing I've found joy in since I've been to Earth? I'm not even being appreciated at this point for the one thing I'm good at. He decides in this episode that enough is enough. I wish they foreshadowed this a little better throughout the series, but the sudden heel turn makes this episode all the more impactful. This feeling of betrayal of the Empire he's been working so hard for manifests itself through Yodonna's interference. Seeing his new friend, who had finally shown him how to have fun again, attacking their art just drives home how miserable he's been this entire time. The straw that breaks the camel's back is when Yodonna starts belittling the damaged art even more, and he strikes back. This was undoubtedly a very cathartic experience for him. You're tearing apart the one thing I've enjoyed in the past year. I've had enough. When he finally decides to help Judu save the city, he's committed himself to betraying the Empire. In the ensuing run, his final words are poignant and turn me around to how I felt about his character pretty much instantly. Constantly creating new Marsks for the sole purpose of trying to fight and win is exhausting. I want to create things freely in a way I can enjoy. A life like that has to be possible. He's the one who showed me. This is the moment when he turns from just another plot device into a tired, beaten creative who simply wants to be as he is. The obligations have finally caught up to him though, and he gets confronted with the BBEG of the season. I'd also like to give props to the two people that portray him. Yasuhiro Takato provides the vocal performance, and Naoko Kamiyo provides the physical performance. So what do we get from our surprising protagonist? I think that when you boil him down, we find that Crunchula is proud, meticulous, and wants to have fun again. Judu plays the role of leader by helping everyone around him shine. His sparkle is so infectious that everyone on the team becomes better because of it. In each episode, it usually plays out that the Kiramager we're focusing on needs a little help to shine, and their leader chimes in and helps them out, often drawing something that manifests itself as a new tool for the Kiramagers to use. In this episode in particular, we find that his usual antics are still there, but now we're applying them to an enemy. When he gets turned, we know that the true self beneath is suppressed, but their personality still manifests itself. Without the ability to use his normal sketchbook, his canvas is instead turned into a giant sign on the floor. He's still being himself. He likes drawing, art, and using his imagination. The one thing stopping him from showing this side of him to Crunchula is that they're enemies. That's simply how the dynamics of Super Sentai is. It's when that block is removed and that he can finally just have fun with a depressed Crunchula that he finally works his magic on the enemy that needed it the most. As the Red of the season, he's usually the one we focus on, and in this episode he plays a more supportive role, but he's still just as shiny as ever. Yodonna is the antagonist of this episode. She was introduced halfway through the series, and throughout her screen time, she's been a formidable force as an upgrade to the enemy forces. In this episode in particular, she represents the Empire as a whole. She's brutal and calculating, not afraid to cut off anybody that's of no use to the Emperor. She's probably been calculating whether Crunchula is worth it ever since she arrived on the scene. In the mainline season, she's been working hard and loyal to the Empire. Nothing can take her off her mindset once she's locked on. As for how she fits into the narrative of the episode, she represents the pressure that being a part of the Empire brings. She brutalizes Crunchyroll's monster, and she tears apart the art project he worked on because she sees no purpose in it. I think we've all met someone like her at one point in our lives, prioritizing personal gain over enjoyment. She's a rather headstrong representation of this, but I think she provides an interesting conflict for Crunchyroll to face. Without her, Crunchyroll's crisis wouldn't have been as narratively interesting. Before I jump into the thematic analysis, I want to lay down the amazing narrative technique used in this episode. The reason I decided to write about this episode in the first place, because I swear, I need people to understand the mind-shattering revelation I had when I first watched it. I was flabbergasted the moment I understood what the heck just happened. So let's begin. Super Sentai is formulaic. It's typically 5 warriors, usually a 6, and they fight a monster of the week. There's usually generals and a big bad they fight for the finale. Tropes. As a Super Sentai fan, I was aware of these tropes. I lived off these tropes. Kiramager is a mastery of those tropes. It checks off all of the boxes we've come to expect so far. A little paint by numbers, sure, but still entertaining. I was lured into a false sense of security in regards to Crunchyroll. This is season 44. He was just another monster maker character, another cog in the machine. I didn't expect much else from him, other than the fact that he made monsters, created the conflict, and was a device for the Kiramagers to shine. I had boxed him in. In-universe, the characters around him had similar feelings. He was just a comic relief character who made more and more monsters to fight. Each week, some fancy new gimmick, whatever. Even the Kiramagers comment on how half-hearted the cat monster was. All the characters in-universe also boxed him in. So imagine the surprise I felt when he said those 3 words, as a creator. He wasn't just another cog in the machine. He was a poor creative forced to churn out monster after monster. He was an overworked artist. My empathy for him turned on a dime. I instantly cared so much about him. He wasn't just another narrative device. Rather, he was a parallel to Judo's journey. While Judo was using creativity for good, he was using creativity for evil. This recontextualizes not just Kiramager, but Super Sentai the format as a whole. I was flabbergasted. The pressure felt by him was both diegetic and non-diegetic. He feels penned in, both by the characters in universe and by the conventions of Super Sentai. He was forced to make constantly, essentially sapping the joy out of the very thing he loved to do. Which leads me to the first theme. It's no secret that I like creating things. I went to college to study media. Stories in general interest me, and I grew up surrounded by them. So when I went to college, I was excited to hone my skills. But after 4 years, I had come to realize something. Being forced to churn out paper after paper and being forced to talk about things analytically, I was no longer doing the things I loved for the sake of joy. It had become an obligation. I would stare at blank Google Docs and feel stifled. This episode aired on January 31st, 2021. I still had a way to go when I first watched it, so back then I was astounded by the narrative flip they managed to use on me. But now, years later, I look back on this episode and realize that it applies to me much more than I realize. So imagine my surprise when I rewatched this episode only to find a short monologue that shook me to my core.
戦い勝利するためだけに邪魔を作り続けるのはしんどい。もっと自由に楽しく作ってみたい。そんな生き方もきっとある。あいつが教えてくれた。
I've never related more to a Super Sentai villain. I had forgotten what it was like to enjoy the work I had put in. I was burnt out, in a slump, just like Crunchyroll. We've all been there before, but only after finally graduating did I realize the pain that he had been going through. I know it's a simple episode about a monster that turns people into cats. It might be a kid's show, but hey, looking into stories to find the beauty in them is kind of what I love to do. Speaking of things you love to do, can you imagine if I ended this video on a low note? The way I left it off was a little sad, so I need to provide additional context. Now, this episode is the one before the 4-part finale, so one more spoiler alert just in case. Crunchyroll gets saved from that final attack. Garza saves him. In the finale, Crunchyroll goes through with his redemption arc. He helps the Kiramagers against the final boss, becomes the new ruler of the Empire, and they are now peaceful. We last see him dedicated to his art, finally happy. Good for him. The first step to reclaiming his shine was to recognize the situation that he was in. The people around him were stifling him and not even appreciating what he was doing. This one act of rebellion led to a new world of possibilities for him, because he knew what was worth fighting for. Ironically, in a way, he saved himself. Without his resolve to make the cat monster, he might not have ever had a moment with Kirame Red. His own creativity saved himself. We all go through ups and downs. Crunchyroll was able to save himself. He got out of the environment he was in, and we see him finally being able to be who he is, a creative, now unburdened by the obligations of the Empire. What does this tell us? With the right amount of work, you're allowed to break free of the things holding you back. Your shine is worth fighting for. This is the lesson that the heroes usually learn, but in this episode, we see that maybe even the ones you least expect can change. This episode represents Super Sentai as a whole. Delightfully wacky, but filled with heart. This one redemption episode shocked me into remembering something important. I may have gotten burnt out from college, but here I am making new videos. And I like media analysis. I like working hard at Google Docs. I like all of this. Doing something you love for the sake of doing something you love is a valuable lesson that I'll keep with me thanks to this episode. Once I got the strength to fight for what I love, the rest simply fell into place. So, how do you get out of a creative slump? Remember to have fun. It's really easy to forget about the things you love, but joy is a thing worth fighting for.
いや、自由にただ楽しむだけに描いて作って俺クランチュラとあんなに楽しく過ごせたんだ。みんなも同じ気持ちになれればいいのに。